Greetings, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode in the Monday Musings series, which started off as a random thing at the beginning of the year and has since kind of evolved into this, hey, let's just get together and talk about random topics on a Monday morning. And I traditionally record these very early on a Monday morning, but I'm actually pre-recording this one on Sunday night so that I can get it out tomorrow morning because I have a feeling I'm going to be up working late tonight and I'm not going to be waking up early tomorrow morning. So I wanted to get this ready to go um, for all of you. So welcome to the newest episode. So we're going to be talking about today. This weird thing happened where the other night I couldn't sleep and I was laying in bed and I was on my phone and I was on Netflix and I happened to be scrolling through looking for something new to watch, and came across Star Trek Voyager, which I watched parts of Voyager many years ago. When I was, a matter of fact, the same time that I was living in the house with my high school friends, um, who were all going off to college, when I created the Saga of Leucemia back in 1999, 2000 era when I first created the world and started running that campaign of D&D for those guys, we would get together and watch Star Trek Voyager when it would come on, along with the D&D animated show was back on the air at that point, so we would watch that as well. Anyway, so I'm watching like this first episode, I believe it was the first episode of Star Trek Voyager, and as I'm watching, this character comes on the screen, and he's a very bit character. Um, Literally, he's like a minor character, like a super minor character, not like one of the minor characters. He's like one of the third minor characters in the film, or in the show, I should say. And it's the pilot episode, which is the first two. I think it's called Caretaker, is what it was called. And I'm watching it, and I didn't know at the time who this actor was because he's got makeup on and everything else. But the voice was like there was something about his voice that literally made me pause the movie and go, hey, that reminds me of that guy who played this part in the movie Willow back in the day. And so I go on IMDb and I look up the cast for Willow, and lo and behold, the same actor who I was thinking of from the Willow movie was actually the guy behind the makeup in the show that I was just watching on Star Trek Voyager. So this guy's name as an actor, his name is, and I'm probably going to butcher his last name. He's an older fellow now. Uh, Gavin O'Herlihy, I think is how you pronounce his name. So in the movie Willow, he played um, Eric Thaber, who's basically the buddy of Val Kilmer's character, and has the band of soldiers and fights alongside him and stuff. And he's not a big name. He's mostly done a lot of stage stuff over the years, and he's had bit parts in shows like Star Trek Voyager. But what was interesting to me was that I didn't even recognize him as that actor when I was watching that first episode of Voyager. Which, by the way, in that episode of Voyager, he plays the character, and I gotta look it up now. Maje Jabin, who's like this really minor, like leader of these bad guys who like want to take over this space station, and he's probably only on screen for a few minutes at most. But what what made me laugh was it was just I was watching the episode, and the guy's voice it triggered something in my memory. It was like, hey, that reminds me, whatever happened to that actor who was in Willow? Because that guy's voice sounded like that. But I didn't even associate that actor with the actor from Willow. It was just the voice and everything else. And then when I went over to the IMDb, I paused the episode and I went over to the IMDb page for, Willow, and I'm looking at the cast. I was like, hang on a second. This is the guy. This is the same guy. And it just made me chuckle because sometimes when you're doing research for something or whatever, you'll come across these things that connect, the ties that bind. And they might seem entirely random at the time, but sometimes they're not exactly random. And sometimes they lead you down these weird rabbit holes. Um, and you end up spending the next hour and a half going through this IMDb page, and then you're on the guy's Wikipedia, and you're looking up all the things that he's done and how he moved to London, and been involved in a bunch of stage productions and all this other stuff, and also made me really want to go back and watch Willow, which then got me going over to read up on all the rumors and everything about the new Willow show that Disney Plus is producing, which is going to be awesome. And if you've never read the books that George Lucas co-wrote with, I'm going to look him up now. He's a comic book guy. Starts with a C. Um, Chris Claremont. So there was. It's called the Chronicles of the Shadow War. There was Shadow Moon, Shadow Dawn, and Shadow Star. They take place about 15 years after the film and feature the teenage Elora Danan as the central character. Um, and unfortunately, at the very beginning of the book, Mad Mardigan and Sorcerer are killed off right away, so they're not part of it. Spoiler alert! But Willow is in the book, and they're actually pretty good novels. Um, they're not the best novels that I've ever read, but they're also not the worst novels I've ever read. But anyway, random stuff while I was watching the first episode of Star Trek Voyager, and it was literally like I think like an hour and a half before I got back to finishing the episode of the show because I got sidetracked into this IMDb black hole, which then sent me to Wikipedia, and I just went from there. But it's been fun. Lots of interesting things have happened in the last week. We're moving full speed ahead into 2021. Um, it's where do I start? So first and foremost, we've got several new posts up on Patreon, and it's mostly related to the upcoming project that I'm going to be kicking off in late February, early March. It's probably going to be early March. I am 30 as of tonight. It's like 8:15 on January 31st. I just wrapped a writing session about an hour ago um, on the new novel. I'm about 36% of the way through. I have been averaging. I'm doing a chapter a day, and I just wrapped chapter 11. I think was tonight. So I got a ways to go, but I'm on schedule to have that wrapped by the end of February. As soon as I wrap that up, as soon as the rough draft gets wrapped, I'm jumping into the next project, which is a Patreon exclusive project. It's something I'm working on with other people. There are multiple components to it. Um, there are several parts to the project. It's that's all I can say right now. There is a Patreon post which talks about it in greater detail. It is for subscribers only, so if you are interested in that kind of stuff, you're going to want to head over to the Patreon page and check it out. This is also the first time my wife has worked with me on anything other than our travel brand. So for a long time, those of you who know me for a long time, um, we worked together on Marginal Boundaries, which was our travel brand, and that's the brand that we worked through when we worked around the world doing videography, photography, public speaking engagements, marketing campaigns, and so on and so forth. We shut that down at the end of 2017, right before we moved to Mexico City, so that I could focus full time on game development. Now we have somewhat revived that project on a hobby basis. We're doing maybe one post a month on YouTube, no blog posts or anything like that, just kind of life in Mexico stuff. And we're already in the middle of having some discussions with some of the people that we used to work with about going and doing some more speaking engagements once COVID vaccinations are out and travel opens up again. But in the meantime, because she's not doing anything else right now, other than she'd gotten her diploma and she's working on her Patreon where she's doing Mexican cooking tutorial videos. For those of you who want to check that out, link is below if you like good food. Um, she's always had a passion for art, um, but it's always been something that she just does in her spare time. So she does lots of arts and crafts. She does lots of sewing, lots of sculpting with clay and other mediums. She does a little bit of painting. She does some drawing, some sketching, but it's always just been something that she does in her spare time for the pure enjoyment of it. My mom actually got her a really nice art kit for Christmas. I can't remember if it was for Christmas or for her birthday. I don't remember when it was, but it was a few years ago. I think 2017 or 2018. Um, just with tons of watercolors and pencils and all this other. And she's used that and pursued that as a passion project for the past couple few years. And then I ran it by her a few weeks ago. I was like, "Hey, what do you think about doing concept art for this new project I'm working on?" And she was like, "Well, I've never done concept art before." And I was like, "That's fine. You don't concept art doesn't it doesn't need to be refined imagery. It's not like you're creating a finalized piece of poster art or anything like that. It's just rough concept art to put out there for inspiration." And she agreed. So she actually just turned in the first piece today and has already started working on the second piece. And she's going to be working with me on this project moving forward from a concept artist standpoint. So I'm kind of excited about that because it means we're going to be working together on a new project, something that's not related to travel, which is traditionally everything we had done before had always been related to, food photography, food videography, travel videography, our public speaking engagements with marketing. Um, but it's always been, in the travel and marketing industries, and never on the fantastical projects that I work on as a part of my creative side within the realm of being an author and a game developer and a game designer. So it's fun. That project is sort of kicking off, but not really going to kick off until March. It is going to be Patreon exclusive, so I would urge those of you who, if you've read my books and if you follow along with the work that I did for the Saga of Leucemia over the past 6.5 years since I've founded Stormhaven Studios back in whenever it was, 2014, 2015. If you've liked the kind of stuff that I've worked on over the years, then you're going to like this new project that I'm working on because it is a creative project that starts with the written word and goes from there. I don't want to spoil too much, but you're going to want to subscribe to the Patreon because we're doing everything exclusively through there. And that's going to kick off as soon as I get the draft of this novel wrapped up. We're going to be starting to publish things over on Patreon. And the objective, I think, is going to be for daily updates. But we'll see if we can maintain that pace because this is not something that we're working on full time. It's a side project that we're working on a couple few hours a day in between the other things that we work on. So hopefully you'll stay tuned for that and tune in. Other than that, we're working through on Sundays. I've been doing the read throughs of um, Bloody Knuckles, and somebody asked the other day in Discord. I want to say it was Hembar. Um, Asked in Discord if I was going to be doing another anthology, and the short answer to that is that yes, at some point down the road, I am going to be doing another anthology, but um, it's not on the front burners right now. It's on the back burners. I've got two short stories that I'm working on as I have inspiration. Those are not things that are on my list of things to do right now. So my main priority is doing a chapter a day in the new novel. Those are averaging about 3,000 words. So I try to put in, it's usually 2 to 3 hours for me to get, I sit down for 2 to 3 hours and I get that done every single day. And then outside of that, I have the other things that I work on, my contract work and the work that I do with Hidden Compass and so on and so forth. Um, and then every once in a while, maybe once every 3 weeks or so, I'll find a spare hour or two here and there, and I'll go jump into one of these two short stories and I'll write another section, another scene for them. But I don't anticipate those being finished anytime soon. If I have those finished by May, I'll be surprised. But it just depends. Sometimes I have times when I'll write twice in a month on those short stories. But in order for me to put out an anthology, I really need there to be at least 8 stories of substantial length for me to put in. I think this first one had one. Let me check here. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine. There was 9 stories in this one, and it's not a thick book. Um, So, you really have to make it worthwhile. Anything less than 8 short stories, and it's really not going to be enough to put together an anthology. So, yeah, I will eventually. I've got notes for other short stories. I've got more Donovan short stories that I want to do. There's more. There's all sorts of stuff that I want to work on, but it's just a matter of time and getting to them. So we'll see. I might eventually do an anthology, but if I'm lucky, I might be able to have it rough drafted by the end of this year. But it just depends on so many other things. Um, like I said, the main priority right now is getting the sci-fi novel draft finished. Once that's done, I'm moving on to the Patreon project, and then I will move into editing um, and doing revisions for the sci-fi novel. Um, I'm not rushing that one, so I think I would like to have the submission draft ready by sometime in the summer. But I'm not on a timeline for that. That's just one of those things where I'm like, you know what? Everything I've done to date has always been self-published or on spec for other people. Um, and this is the first time I've written a book with the intent to submit it to agents and see about actually doing it the traditional route. Um, so that's not something I'm going to be rushing. So if I get the draft done by the end of February, I'll spend March, April, May, however long it takes, to get it to the point where I feel it's ready for submission. And then we'll start submitting to agents and see where we go. In the meantime, got lots of other stuff that I'm working on. So looking forward to all that stuff. The Lotro Cooking in Real Life series has dropped back to about every 2 weeks now. I'm not doing it once a week. The reason for that is because I'm helping my wife. She's doing like 3 or 4, sometimes more every week episodes for her show, for Patreon. So I'm doing a lot of videography and photography for her. So as a result, I don't have the time to be doing once a week episodes for YouTube and Patreon. There are other things I'm doing for Patreon that are related to other projects, but the next episode of you guys are watching this on Monday, so the next episode of the Lotro Cooking in Real Life series comes out on Wednesday, and it's going to be the Feast of Rohan, which is a very delicious beef and ale stew, um, which is a classic. I usually make it once or twice a year. It's not a staple thing, but it is something I'll make once or twice a year. And when you make it, usually, for the two of us, it's enough food to feed you for a week. So it's a nice feast. It really is a feast. What else is going on in our world? We have just finished, or we're in the process of finishing, the Skywalker saga. So my wife has only ever seen the Star Wars movies once, and this is back in 2015. When we got back from Spain, she watched the prequel movies and then the original trilogy, and then we went and saw The Force Awakens, I believe it was called, in 2015. Now she had never seen the other two. Was it The Last Jedi, and I don't remember what the one was called from 2019. I'm gonna go look now. Skywalker saga. This is just funny to me because I was such a Star Wars nerd back in the day, but uh, Star Wars films. The new movies that Disney has put out, I'm just kind of like, meh. They're okay, but also, meh. The Rise of Skywalker, that's the one. So we're on Rise of Skywalker now, and it's funny because um, I was telling my brother this the other day, and if you watched one of the streams we did the other day when we were playing Lotra, I was talking about this, and it was just it made me laugh because I've seen those movies so many times, the original movies. 3PO was written for children, as was Jar Jar, and this just goes to show that children of all ages can appreciate those characters because 3PO makes her laugh out loud and die of giggling fits. And Yoda in The Empire Strikes Back when he's like beating R2 with a stick. Just she has been giggling her ass off at 3PO's antics through the movies. But she's also had lots of questions because she's actually, paying attention to this time around. And when she first watched them, her English wasn't that good. And this time around, her English is great because, she finished, got her diploma and everything. And so she's watching them this time still with subtitles on. But the funniest part is, like, now she has questions about the discrepancies between the prequel movies and the original trilogy, like how come R2D2 can't fly around and do all these cool things that he was doing in the prequel trilogies? And it's like, yeah, that's the advancement of technology. And there's discrepancies in the films. So we've been doing that. We're about to wrap that up, and then I think from there we're moving on to excuse me. I think from there we're moving on to season two of His Dark Materials on HBO. Because I think it's been out for about a month or two now, and we haven't watched the second season. I am scheduling a reread of the Dragonlance Chronicles, the first three novels in the Dragonlance series, which is kicking off um, as soon as I wrap up this draft. So by the end of the month, I'll be reading through the first novel, and that actually has something to do with the project that I'm going to be working on over at Patreon starting in March as well. I'm not going to tease any more about how that ties in, but you will understand it once we start to post things on a daily basis over there. Um, YouTube wise, it's pretty much going to stick the same for the next few months, foreseeable future, unless something dramatic happens, which means Monday and Thursday nights, I'm playing Lotro with my brother, and we're streaming usually from around 8 p.m. until 9:30. We play for an hour, hour and a half. We usually don't go much longer than that. And my brother's friend Tristan has been joining us on his Hobbit on Monday nights, so we'll see if that continues. And then Sundays, I'm doing the read through of Bloody Knuckles. Those come out here on Sundays. Mondays is obviously the Monday Musing episodes in the mornings. Both of those usually come out around 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock Sunday morning for the read throughs, and 10 o'clock Monday morning for the Monday Musings. Once I wrap up Bloody Knuckles, I'll be diving back into Echoes of the Past, book one of the Saga of Lucemia, and I'll be reading chapters on Sundays for the foreseeable future. That'll probably last all year. Um, Roughly. I mean, there's 30 some chapters. I've done the forward and the first two chapters, I think, already. But I'm going to be continuing that moving forward. But those are big, big chapters, and I might not be reading all of them during a single sit through because those could turn into like hour-long episodes. So we might just do like a 30-minute cutoff point and do like half of a chapter each time we do a read through, which would give us like 60 episodes, or so. So I mean, foreseeably that could last the rest of the year. I have had requests to do more Assassin's Creed Valhalla videos, which I may do. Also, requests to do more Cyberpunk 2077 videos, which I may do. But again, my priority here at YouTube is I'm not a streamer. Um, I do stream my sessions of Lotro when I play with my brother. I also do my lore master, who right now I'm doing the Long Dark of Moria. I've done 4 episodes, so I usually get on. I'll play for an hour and a half, 2 hours, um, once or twice a week. Really, it's been about once a week since Christmas time. Um, I've only been playing that character about once a week, and I do stream all of my Lotro episodes, but I play PS4 every single day, and I don't really stream those episodes. Um, I might. We'll see. But again, the purpose of my YouTube channel is not necessarily to just cover streaming. I like to do things that have purpose. So I enjoy Lord of the Rings Online a lot. It's a great escape for me. It's something that I do with my brother. So it's a nice thing for me to be able to share with people. But also because I like cooking and I really like my Lotro Cooking in Real Life series. It's something that for me is cooking is very relaxing and I have a lot of fun cooking and I like to eat. So playing that game, there's a reason for me streaming that game because it's a way to um, showcase the game and also showcase the recipes that I'm pulling from the game. As opposed to, I don't want to just sit here and stream for 4 hours a day or 6 hours a day or whatever the case may be, playing all these different games because that's not who I am. I do like the Monday Musing stuff. I've done a lot of podcasts in the past. Uh, Scribbles, by the way, who's just subscribed over at resubscribed, I should say, over at Patreon, was talking about one of the things he really enjoyed back in the day was when I used to do the Diary of an Indie Game Dev um, episodes, and then the Mondays and MMORPG episodes. So, I mean, those are the types of things that I really like to do on YouTube is podcasts and vodcasts and sitting here and chatting with people as opposed to just playing games. So, moving forward to the foreseeable future, like I said, there will be some games on the YouTube channel, but there's also a lot of reading through books and talking and just shooting the shit about various things on Monday mornings and doing the cooking show from Lord of the Rings Online. And then, starting in March, the new project, which is going to be daily. The idea is that it's going to be daily on Patreon, and then we'll be having updates 2 or 3 times a week on YouTube. Again, can't share what those are going to be yet because that project is still under wraps. But basically, we're going to be taking people through from the very first step all the way through to completion, and there are a variety of products that are going to be coming out. There's 3 products planned for 2021. So every quarter there's going to be something that's dropping. And again, that's all going to be done through Patreon. So we will eventually release those things to the public, but Patreon subscribers get them first, and that's what we're doing it for. And then once we've got everything out the door, then it goes public from there. So hopefully you'll stick around for that kind of stuff because a lot of good things are planned, and we're having a lot of fun with it. And I'm really looking forward to travel opening up again. Um, Living in the city, my brother has the ranch, so it's been very easy for him and his family. They don't feel necessarily the same. I don't want to use the word anxiety, but there is a certain aspect to being locked down in a city as opposed to be able to go out into nature and just enjoy yourself. And that's not to say we don't go out. We go to the park and but that's very limited because even going to the park is a risk, so to speak, when you go to the park because there are other people there and you can social distance, but it's always a risk. But when you're in a concrete jungle, it's different. And there's definitely this sense of, we've been in lockdown since March of last year, so it's we're coming up on 1 year of like being cooped up in the apartment and only going out for groceries and the running 2 or 3 times a week at the park. And that has gotten really old after a year. There's only so much Netflix and video games a person can take before they start going a little stir crazy. And we are definitely looking forward to getting our vaccines and the world returning to normal, hopefully, and getting back into travel and going and exploring things. There's a great big wide world out there. Um, and it's great to get out there and see it and explore it and experience it and enjoy the food, the wine, and the people and everything else. So as much as I love video games, as much as I love fantasy novels and science fiction and everything else, I also love to get out there and have fun and travel. So I'm looking forward to that. So hopefully all of you are staying safe, staying healthy, and having fun with all the various projects that you're working on. Um, If you haven't already done so, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon so that you get updates when new content is available here on the channel or when I go live with a stream. And of course, don't forget to check out the links below to the Patreon. You can pick up a subscription. We've got free copies of books at the various different levels and access to game dev stuff as well as behind the scenes stuff in the various projects that I'm working on, writing and everything else. So if you like that kind of stuff, make sure you pick up a sub over at Patreon. One way or the other, we will see all of you next time. Don't forget, Wednesday is the next episode of Lotro Cooking in Real Life, and I will see everybody on the flip side. Stay safe.